Hi guys, this is Dan. Huge welcome if you're new here. Winter is coming and honestly, I don't need to check my phone, I don't need to check my calendar for it because once I turn the heating on, it is officially the winter reading season. So today I'm going to share my winter TBR. Everything I plan or I hope to read from November next month to February next year. From massive finales like the Wheel of Time or the Echo Saga, long overdue Cosmere catch-up and some new releases that I can't resist to dive into. I would go through them by priority, the ones that I really need to finish, books from subscription, or the ones that I can't resist adding in. Like I said many times, I'm not really good at keeping up with new releases, so if you see anything is missing on this list, feel free to share them in the comment below so that I can add them back later. Before we dive into this list, I want to say a huge thank you to my Patreon, because without their support, it is not easy to keep on creating. So if you enjoy what I am creating, or if you want to make some new friends who also enjoy reading, you may consider to become my Patreon and the link is in the description below. So now let's dive into my winter TBR. First of all, some really positive news here because you won't see me keep on repeating these two series anymore because I'm going to finish these two epic fantasy by next month. We have the last book of both The Wheel of Time and the Echo Saga, A Memory of Light by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson, A Clash of Fate by Philip C. Quintrell. So in November, I'm going to read these two massive breaks, and I honestly can't wait to finish them off because it is my very first time to complete an epic fantasy series that is this long. The Wheel of Time is 14th book long if you don't count the prequel, and for the Echo Saga, it is 9th book. The last time I finished a series that is not a trilogy, something slightly longer, is the Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. I was in awe by how he wrapped up this epic fantasy. So I'm really curious to find out how Philip C. Quintrell and Brandon Sanderson gonna conclude their series. The next thing we can talk about is my book subscription. And if you can remember from my Q3 reading wrap-up, now I only keep two subscriptions active, and they are the Broken Binding Fantasy Sub and the SFF one. For the Fantasy Sub, I still need to finish the Between Earth and Sky trilogy by Rebecca Ronhorst. The first book, Black Sun, is already on my October's TBR, and hopefully I can check out the next two books in the coming 2 months. After completing this trilogy, the next pick is going to be The Band Duology by Nicholas Eames. I love the mock-up art already. The new redesigned cover is so different from the original one, and the interior art is also perfect. And I'm also secretly looking forward to see the new collectible card coming from this fantasy sub. I think the band this duology brought up quite a lot maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a long time ago. Since then, I didn't really see much people talking about it, and obviously I haven't checked this series out. So let's see how this series is gonna be like. And finally, we are out of the 80s fantasy zone, let's say the Rift Saga or the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn series. Don't get me wrong, they're still really inspiring good fantasy series, but I tend to enjoy more with the modern ones. This is always how I describe the Broken Binding Fantasy Sub. They will pick up a series that you definitely heard of, but just for some reasons, we haven't checked it out yet. So far, all the series that they have picked, I haven't read them before. As for their new SFF subscription, I have already received their books, but they're still in one of those boxes that is on the floor. I want to do a book haul soon, so I haven't really unboxed them yet. I guess at this point, it is not a spoiler anymore because many has already opened their boxes and shared what's inside. And the very first book for this new subscription is The Witcher, Crossroad of not Twilight, but Raven. This one actually I am not too certain with because I know that The Witcher is like a longer fantasy series, and the reason why the Broken Binding still picked this one up is because it is a new release and it's also a prequel. But I'm just not too sure how much you need to know about the Witcher universe before starting this book. So if you're a fan of The Witcher, not the game, the fantasy series, and if you have also already completed the prequel, do let me know what is it going to be like. Okay, talking about the next book we're gonna receive in November, it might be a spoiler by the time you are watching it, so if you don't want to know about it, feel free to skip ahead. But the book we're gonna receive is All That We See or Seem by Ken Liu, the first book of the Juliet Z series. Now this one is once again totally new to me because it is going to be a sci-fi thriller, not like the Dynasty Dynasty and Asian-inspired fantasy. I guess from the synopsis, this book is a bit Matrixy, Matrix-ish, because we have a main character who would use her skill to rescue an artist from the virtual reality, and this involves topics like identity or technology. This book sort of reminds me of a TV series that I have recently finished, Severance from Apple TV. I love the first season because you will honestly care about whether the indie can be aware and then get out from this prison, but I didn't enjoy the storytelling of the second season. This is my first time to read any sci-fi thriller, so I just hope that Ken Liu would give me something good. Then we have some books that I keep saying I want to get into them, but obviously we haven't. That's why we're here. First of all, we have the Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson. At this point, you know the drill already. I want to read Wind and Truth, book 5 of the Stormlight Archive. But I want to keep up with everything that has already happened in the Cosmere first. And the few books that I haven't taken off yet are Miss One Era 2, Elantris, and some short stories collection. Not too sure how much I can push through in this winter, but luckily the remaining is not really that long. I want to get into the ending of Miss One Era 2, The Lost Metal, because I want to get this business done. And I also want to check out the short stories collection for the Cosmere so that I can take off a prompt for the Red Dead Fantasy Bingo. And to be honest, at this stage, I think I will be better off rereading the whole Stormlight Archive because firstly, it has been too long for me to pick up this series. And secondly, after finishing so many fantasy series, I think rereading starting from The Way of Kings will give me a fresh perspective of this universe. And if I'm right here in the upcoming months, I don't think there are too many big fantasy titles coming out. But once again, if I'm wrong here, feel free to correct me. But the first new release I still want to read is The Art of Legend by Wesley Ju, the third book of the War Art Saga. This is a new release back in August this year, but obviously I still haven't checked it out yet. I just didn't have the right time to check this martial art inspired fantasy out. So hopefully, if not summer, then this coming winter. The next one is not out yet. It's going to be released in November, and I am talking about The Black Fire Blade by James Logan, the second book of the Last Legacy series. I think I've said this so many times already, but I do enjoy this kind of enchanted-ish adventure with Lucan and Flea, and I can't wait to see what they're up to in the next installment, and let's see, can Lucan find out more about the truth of his father's murder? Next, we have a big news because I'm going to talk about 4 fantasy series, and they are all for my 2026 Patreon reading club. It doesn't mean that these 4 series wouldn't be featured on this channel anymore, but I'll share more updates with spoilers, hopefully in video format on Patreon. So if you're interested in this 4 fantasy series, or if you're looking for a reading buddy, feel free to consider to join my Patreon. Like I said, there are 4 trilogies and I am going to read them in January 2026, and this is not just for my Winter TBR. We have The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, Assassin Apprentice by Robin Hobb, The Shadow of the Gods by John Green, and The Marks of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. Like I said before, from a lesson I've learned this year, it is actually better to break down this series up. So I am actually planning to read the first book of the Bloodstone Saga in January, The Blade Itself in February, and then we have The Marks of Mirrors in March, meaning that the Farseer trilogy would be started in April. Then in May, we're going back to the second book of the Bloodstone Saga, so on and forth. And by the end of 2026, we can complete these 4 fantasy trilogies. I hope this would make sense to you, and I think it is a better arrangement for me to create content because no one wants to see me to repeat the same trilogy over 3 months. And this is what I've learned from reading The Wheel of Time or the Echo Saga. For the rest I have on this list, I wouldn't say I am in like a desperate situation to finish them all. So if you're curious to find out what I think about these books, feel free to let me know in the comments so I can kind of prioritize them. The first one I have here is like a surprise to me because I didn't expect I would love this series, and it is The Saint of Steel by T. Kingfisher. I rarely enjoy a fantasy romance. Sometimes it could just be overly spicy, but sometimes the writing is barely there. But Saint of Steel just balanced the chemistry between our characters and the world building so good. It is silly but bloody, and I also enjoy the banter between our main characters. I'm pretty sure I couldn't finish this series by the end of winter, but when I need something that is like more fun, less serious, shorter to read, this series is definitely my choice. By the way, if you know this kind of fantasy series, not just for romantasy, something silly, something fun, something like just have a good time with, you can share your recommendation in the comment below. The next series I want to start is the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. I am interested in it because it is shorter. No, I'm just kidding, but I need to use it for the Reddit Fantasy Bingo. One prompt, I forgot what it is, but never mind, I just need to read the first book of the Murderbot Diaries. And I also just saw the Enigma Crate is doing a special edition for this series, and I think they condensed a 7-book long series into 4 hardcovers. Not sure how that works because obviously I haven't read this series yet. This is a series that I heard a lot, and I mean it just got a series adaptation. Maybe it is a sign for me to really start this series now. For the next book, I also want to start this because it is for the Reddit Fantasy Bingo. Once I finish this book, it will unlock so many possibilities. Here we have Hyperion by Dan Simmons. If I'm right here, this is a series that published by the late 80s, and it is like a space opera and a mix of fantasy and sci-fi. If you remember from my video, this is possibly on my summer TBR, so it is actually on the top of the list. So we are nearly at the end of this list, and here is what I would say honorable mention. I am not too sure did I miss out something that I want to read, but in case I still got time for winter, here are the books that I want to check out. First up, Arrogant by Christopher Rocio, the first book of the Inheritance cycle. I think it is like a staple of YA fantasy about dragon and the dragon rider. There are 2 things I know about this series. Firstly, it was written when Paolini was only 18. Impressive, right? Then some of you guys actually DNF this series, and usually you guys are right and our taste is so similar. I just wish this is not going to be a letdown like the Sun Eater series because I have the Broken Binding Special Edition set. Speaking of the Sun Eater, I have actually decided to unhaul my physical copies, the special edition from the Broken Binding, but still I want to test my limit and see whether I can get to the end of Howling Dark, the second book of this series. I read more reviews about this series, and it seems like the second book is like a massive turning point of the narrative. But once again, I just don't think I have read such a divided reviews about a series. Many other fantasy series, or for those that I have just talked about, let's say the Farseer trilogy, the Wheel of Time, let's say the First Law trilogy, yes, there will be people not enjoying it, but majority of the reviews are still positive. But when I talk about the Sun Eater here, it is like like-minded people attracting like-minded people. Not many of you are really vibing with it. I just don't know why. Okay, for the next fantasy series, when I got into it depends on my monthly TBR, because I mean every book in this series is like a break. And I am talking about The Will of the Many by James Arlington, the first book of the Hierarchy series. I have completed the Lacanius trilogy last year, and I have heard about people comparing these 2 series, and many would say that the Hierarchy is definitely much better. To be honest, it is the very few fantasy book that I only heard about the positive. I rarely come across with YouTuber or like online Reddit reviews saying anything negative about it. I think this series is like someone infiltrating a system to investigate a murder. From the Lacanius trilogy, we can see the strength of Arlington in the world building. The Will of the Many is definitely an intimidating read, and I would just need to read some shorter books with it in that month. Coming to the last book on this list, it is like finally reaching the final boss stage. It is possibly the most complicated, intricate, epic fantasy series. I'm scared to start this one because I will be so worried to miss out any of details in this series, and I am talking about Gardens of Moon by Stephen Erickson, the first book of the Maleficent series. Don't think I need to explain too much about this book. It is another very popular epic fantasy series. I have heard about the scale of the world building in this series. It's just like on another level, and given that this is like a 10-book long series, if you have completed this series, do you think it will be better to read it back and forth? Don't leave things hanging for too long because I want to be really prepared for it. So let me try to lift everything up for you. This is all the books that I want to read in this coming winter, and you can't really see my face. This is definitely a very ambitious list, and I honestly don't think I can finish all this book by the end of February. This is such a weird pose. Let me know in the comment what's on your winter TBR. Are you like me checking out some longer epic fantasy series, or you just want to cozy up and read something that is short and fun? You can share all your thoughts in the comment below. And I'm running out of breath. So thank you for watching, guys. If you don't want to miss out any fantasy TBR like this one, or wrap up, or any other fun video idea, make sure you have subscribed to my channel and like this video. I'll see you all really soon. Goodbye. Do I need to lift it up to do the closing?